So Jiffin, who was supposed to give this talk, is what? He's stuck on a bus or a taxi. And as soon as I get the slides up here, I'll project the slides. My name's Caleb Keithley. I'm the tech lead at Red Hat for the NFS Ganesha, which is if you don't know what NFS Ganesha is, it's a user space. It's an NFS server in user space. And he was going to give the Ganesha weather report. Is that what I'm talking about? So Ganesha is it's an NFS server that runs in user space. It supports all the NFS protocols, 3, 4, 4.1, 4.2. 4.2 isn't too much of a stretch because 4.2 is just a bunch of optional things and we don't have any of those optional things, but we can claim support for 4.2 because it's all optional. Also PNFS. So upstream community has an active development team of 5 or 6 developers. They're largely based in, I have 10 minutes left. Gmail might be there by then with the slides. We're currently actively working on the 2.8 release. We released 2.7 about 6 months ago. We're doing maintenance releases, so we're just in the process of preparing 2.7.2. That will be released in a few days. What else? We go to connectathons and bakeathons. Connectathons have been hosted by Sun, now Oracle in Sunnyvale. We're getting ready to go to. We just had a bakeathon in Westford that Red Hat hosts in October, and we're going to have another one in May in Ann Arbor, Michigan. What else would I say? So,
what's the team working on most recently? New features, performance. What kind of topics were hot?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yes, performance, new features.
Did you check the number of backends?
Sorry. Yeah. So, okay. One of the.
When they ask a question, can you repeat it so it's on the recording?
Sure. So the question is, what are the backends that Ganesha supports? Ganesha has a plugin framework that lets you write something called what we call a FSAL, a file system abstraction layer. If you're familiar with Samba calls their same feature a VFS, the Samba VFS or virtual file system. Ganesha calls a FSAL. There's half a dozen or so. There's FSAL VFS, which just speaks to the local file system. So ext4, XFS, possibly ZFS, you name it. In addition, mostly what I've been working on and my team's been working on for the last 3 or 4 years has been the Gluster backend. So there's that. There's a CFFS FSAL. There's an RGW FSAL. Jeff Layton, who you might recognize the name, has a long involvement with the Linux kernel and NFS in the Linux kernel, is currently working on something called Rados URLs, which is a new FSAL. There's also IBM's GFS2 FSAL that are all actively maintained. LizardFS has one that we've been trying to work with them to get that into our tree, and they've sent patches, and we've been working through trying to get their FSAL into adequate shape for us to include. We have people at Red Hat. We have people working on performance mainly focused on Gluster. Probably we'll also be expanding that effort to include more performance work for CFFS and RGW. 5 minutes left, okay. Another developer that we have is working on delegations and getting delegations into usable shape. We have some proof of sorry, no, we don't, not with delegations. Work is ongoing with delegations, so for some workloads.
What do you mean by delegation?
So the question is, what are delegations? And delegations are a feature in NFS v4 that lets the client query where the files are actually located. So rather than maybe talk to this NFS server, which then has to go over to a Gluster or a Ceph over here, it lets it redirect and directly query the server that actually has the data for improved performance. So work is ongoing on delegations. Jiffin, who was supposed to be giving this talk, is actively working on PNFS, and he's gradually folding in improved PNFS support. So there's that. Another thing that's being worked on is labeled NFS. So this would let you do things like SE Linux, protection of the files that you have on your NFS servers. That's off the top of my head. That's the things I can think of. Any questions? Let's just go straight, since I have less than 5. Yeah.
One more.
Sure.
If you have a Kerberos enabled file system, does NFS Ganesha pass on the credentials down to the backend?
So the question is, does Ganesha support Curb 5? And it does. Yeah. So Ganesha will participate in a Curb 5. Ganesha uses LDAP to talk to, or sorry, it uses WinBind to talk to LDAP and Active Directory. So it will authenticate with Curb 5. And here's Jiffin, just in time.
Did you start?
Yeah, we started.
Yeah, there's about 3 minutes left. Can we just maybe continue Q&A or?
Yeah, sure.
That's the best thing.
Take it away, Jiffin.
Let's just please use the microphone, and can you repeat the question that is asked so it's on the recording?
Sure.
Thanks.
So the question that was just asked was the one about Curb 5 support. And did I answer your question?
How the credentials are passed down to the backend? Like if there's someone who is required to
I should know the answer to that, but regretfully, I don't actually know the answer to that.
So Ganesha says they can use everybody's who don't apply to Kerberos.
Yeah, okay. Niels to the rescue.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yes. You mentioned the Rados URL concerning how the translate is working. Can you elaborate what this is about?
Jeff has, the question was, Jeff was using Rados objects for the like active Ganesha solution. Right. So basically Ganesha have an ability to read from the Rados URL, which was added before. So in Jeff's use case, the shared storage is kind of a Rados backend. So the servers can fetch that information from the Rados object backend, whatever it is, and in the time of grace and all those stuff, it can maintain the state from that object. So there is one Rados grace, I think, and script, not script, like a binary which does that job in the Ganesha code base. Okay.
I'm very sorry. We have time for.
Sure. It was my mistake.
Grab them outside if you want to ask more questions. We unfortunately got to move on with the next speaker.
Sure.
Thanks.